Hey guys, welcome into the Stinkin podcast, week 5, officially in the books. Mike Evans, Mark Schlereth. Man, it is so good to be with you, Mike. So good to have all of you with us. And thank you so much for subscribing and following along. Mike, how are you, buddy?
Great. We got some breaking news to get to right away. This happened this morning while we were doing our radio show together, but you're right there in New York City, the epicenter. Robert Saleh fired by the New York Jets. Your reaction?
Yeah, well, first off, it bothers me. I'm upset because Robert's a buddy of mine. And so I never want to see anybody get fired, but especially not your buddies. But I suppose, if he was on your bingo card of coaches to get fired first, Doug Peterson probably would have been number 1 on my bingo card. Robert Saleh would have been maybe down the rankings a little bit, but it's New York and there are issues. And yesterday he came out because he was questioned about where they are as a franchise. And he came out and said, hey, nobody's panicking. There's no panic here, which to me was like, oh, my God, we're panicking, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody was asking if you were panicking. They were just asking kind of, where are you? There's no panic. Nothing to see here. It's not time to panic. And I'm like, oh, shoot, they're panicking. Oh, my God, they're panicking. So there was that aspect of it. And then a couple of weeks ago, you remember when Aaron Rodgers came up and Robert Saleh was all trying to be like that guy, hugging people, and Aaron just kind of, hit him in the chest, and basically, the whole story afterwards, they had to get together on their story about, that was Aaron was just like, hey, I got you a 2-score lead because I always talk about 2-score lead, and we're all hunky dory, and then the next week, it's something completely different. It was cadence the next week, right? Well, we had to work on the cadence. Oh, no, I didn't mean the cadence. The cadence fine. Everything is good here. So you can't tell me that there wasn't discord between Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh. That relationship didn't feel right. It didn't feel like anybody was on the same page. And, and you can't fire the guy you hired to, save your franchise in Aaron Rodgers. So you're going to fire the head coach and put it all on Robert Saleh. But let's face it, he ain't pulling the trigger. I mean, he didn't throw 3 interceptions last week against in London against Minnesota. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been awful. Aaron Rodgers has had literally about 3/4 of good football this entire season through 5 games. He's been terrible. They can't block anybody. They haven't run the ball. He is missing his receivers. He is not on the same page as receivers. He's missing his accuracy has not been there. He's looked old and broken. I mean, this has not been a good look for Aaron Rodgers. And certainly, I understand firing your head coach because you can't fire the players at this point. So, tough break for Robert Saleh. The Jets are awful, and maybe this is the wake-up call they need.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is this thing fixable? You referenced at the beginning that there were multiple things wrong with the Jets right now. So it might be easy, the knee-jerk reaction, to just say, oh, there was a power struggle between Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh, and Aaron Rodgers wins. But does it go deeper than that?
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, so there's a power struggle. I get it. Okay. And, Aaron Rodgers wins the power struggle. He called Robert Saleh into his office this morning and fired him, apparently. So that's kind of what went down, I would assume, or at least that's, the way it happened in my mind. But, Mike, how are you going to fix an offense that right now they can't run the football, right? They're not dominating that aspect of the game. There's not a real connection. There's not a real connection with Aaron Rodgers, any of his receivers. They're not on the same page. He's missing them with an accuracy aspect, which is normally the thing that he does, like throwing guys open and putting it right where it needs to be. He missed. It was the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career last week against Minnesota where he threw 2 first-quarter picks. It's the first time he's ever done that in his career. So he's not playing well. And, oh, by the way, they can't protect him. That offensive line is a sieve right now. And so then it goes to, okay, well, the offensive line's a sieve, and they're not running the ball very well, and Aaron Rodgers isn't, playing very well. But at least they got Nathaniel Hackett calling the offense. Oh, wait, Nathaniel Hackett's calling the offense. So it's not like all of a sudden you're going to go, okay, now that we get rid of Robert Saleh, let's address some of the offensive issues. Robert wasn't in charge of the offense. He was like, here you go, Aaron. Here you go, Nathaniel. You guys go fix this thing and create something that works. And, I say it all the time, Mike, is there are guys who call plays and there are guys who call an offense. And you call an offense. And what I mean by that is you will see a play caller say, hey, man, I really like this play action against this, type of defense that this defense we're playing plays, right? I love it. Out of this formation and this personnel grouping, they're going to play this, particular coverage in this particular front, and they're going to do it 100% of the time. But I hate the run into this front, right? We're not going to get great yardage out of this run because let's say we're running it strong and doing over front and they've got numbers on us, and this run is going to net us about 2 yards per carry, right? And so a lot of just people who just call plays will say, well, screw it, we can't run that, so I'm going to dump that and we're not going to run that play. But a great play caller or a great caller of offense as opposed to just a play caller, but a guy who calls the offense will say, you know what, I get that play ain't worth a shit, right? And it's worth 2 yards a carry. But if we run it and commit to it, we're going to run it 6 times. We're going to get 2 yards per carry. But what it's going to do for us in the passing game, there's a play action off of this where we're going to get this particular defense and this coverage, and we're going to gouge them for 4 different, at some point, 4 different explosives off the play action that I have attached to this run. So that's a guy who calls the offense. He says, I'm going to run this play, understanding I'm only getting 2 yards a carry because it's going to give me this, that is going to be explosive, and that's going to win us a football game. And from what I've seen to this point, okay, watching Nathaniel Hackett for a year or 15 games in Denver, Colorado, and watching them last year and this year, I don't know that that's part of the offensive structure. I think you've got a guy that just calls plays and hopes the plays work as opposed to calling an offense. And so I don't know that you're going to kind of fix what ails the New York Jets. And it's more than Robert Saleh, I promise you that.
Well, the final death knell, I guess, for the Jets and Robert Saleh was what happened to them in London, losing to Minnesota. Let's talk about these Vikings. At some point now, we got to stop, I guess, calling this a fluke. I'm not saying you called their start a fluke, but I think plenty of people around the NFL were kind of looking at the Vikings like, all right, they're 2-0. All right, they're 3-0. All right, they're 4-0. But now that they're 5-0, right. I mean, is this the best team in the NFC? Are the Vikings right now the best team in the NFC?
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a team that's better than them right now. One, like Sam Darnold is playing really good football. Really good. Judicious with the football, throwing touchdowns, got big-time receiving core, takes advantage of that big-time receiving core. He's got a really decent offensive line. They're a good group up front. And with Aaron Jones, they run the ball. Now, he got injured last week, so we'll see exactly kind of how, like, he was really good in the first half, got injured in the second half. They weren't very productive on the offensive side of the ball. And then ultimately that defense is a problem. It's a problem for everybody they've played so far. Identifying the defense, identifying the fronts, it's virtual impossibility. With the way they line up, they'll just line up every guy on the line of scrimmage and just go, okay, you've got to decide who's coming, who's not coming, if we're dropping back, where we're going. Like, all that stuff has to be accounted for. And so they attack protections. I think right now, when you look at Brian Flores and what he's doing, it's so tied together for a complex defense. It's so tied together, and they don't make a lot of defensive mistakes. Now, I will say this. We used to say this when I was in Washington playing for the Hogs. We begged them to blitz us. We begged them to bring pressure because we know what we're doing. And when you pick up pressure, one-on-one coverage, and you've got good receivers, forget about it. Like we're gonna kill you. The other thing is we beg you to blitz us because if we pop a run beyond the first level where you're blitzing, that thing is out the gate. And so one of those things you have to be able to do is when you face a blitz happy team like that, you've got to be able to avoid the negative plays, right? If they get you on a blitz, if they get you, it's for no gain so that you can survive the next play. So now all of a sudden I'm not in second down and 16. I'm in second down and 10. I can survive that. Second down and 16 makes it tough. So eventually somebody will get them. But right now they've had such a success rate with bringing pressure, attacking protections. Here's the other thing, Mike, early, and I haven't talked about this on any other show. The other thing about early in the NFL season, teams aren't very good. They don't play in the preseason. They don't go through all the machinations of that you would go through. They don't have a great sense of who they are. They're still building. There's a lot of teams right now that are like the Niners are 2-3. Do we think their season's over? No, probably not. There's some teams right now that are, 3-2, 4-1, and we're looking at them going, yeah, they're not that, they're not really that good. There's some teams that are 3-2 that are figuring it out, like the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's this work in progress that's going on. One of the things that's really hard is early in the season when you haven't played a lot, having that communication between quarterback, between offensive line, where we want to go, how we're going to pick things up, the way we're going to operate. That stuff ain't real clean. Tying the backs into that protection, maybe a tight end in that protection. That stuff is a little dirty right now. Well, as the season progresses and teams get better and better and better at picking up blitz and understanding what they're doing, we'll see how the effectiveness of Minnesota, what kind of effectiveness that they have. But like they've got staying power. There's no question. They're a really talented football team, a very well coached football team. They're getting really good play out of their quarterback and really, really good play out of their defense right now.
So you're not worried. If you're a 49er fan, your message to 49er fan is don't worry about this. As soon as they get everybody back healthy, they'll be fine.
No, I just think that in that division, Mike, I think they're still the class of that division. So even though they lost Arizona, do I think Arizona's better than them? Nope. They play Seattle on Thursday night. I think it's Thursday night, yes. If they beat Seattle on Thursday night, guess what? They're in first place in the division. Mm. So, do I think they're going to win that division? Yeah, I do think they're going to win that division. Now, do I think they're in trouble of losing an opportunity at the number one seed? Yes, I do. I don't think they're going to make the number one seed. And I will tell you this, a lot of people will sit there and say, well, their run game has been really good. Like the issue with San Francisco is, think about it. They had Robert Saleh as the D coordinator. He leaves to be the head coach of the Jets. They go to DeMeco Ryans. He leaves to become the head coach of the Houston Texans. They go to Steve Wilkes. He leaves because he gets fired. Now they have, Sorensen, right? I think it's Nick Sorensen. Is it? Yeah, Nick. Is it Nick Sorensen? Whatever. So there's 4 different coordinators, right? And so there's a lack of continuity on that side, and that's the thing that's hurt them. They've lost to the Los Angeles Rams with a 10-point lead late in that game. They lost Arizona with a 10-point lead late in that game. They have given up, I think, in the fourth quarter of the last couple of games, they've given up 6 drives for 24 points or something of that nature. I mean, they have not been good at holding on to a lead, and they've got Nick Bosa. A superstar at the defensive end position. They have got Fred Warner, a superstar. They have got Hufanga at the safety position. They have got Charvarius Ward. So they've got superstars on that defense. They have not been able to hold that side of the ball. And then the other thing that's really difficult for them is Christian McCaffrey being out. And everybody go, well, it really hasn't hurt them because Jordan Mason has run the snot out of the ball. Where I would tell you it's really hurt them is it that gives them a dynamic that nobody else in the league has, that every defense has to prepare for and spend a lot of time on. And that dynamic is, let's put Christian outside the formation. Let's line him up outside the numbers. Let's let him run wide receiver routes, and let's bring Deebo Samuel into the backfield. And now all of a sudden, you've got to prepare for Deebo Samuel, whether he runs the ball, the jet sweeps, all those different things, but he'll run between the tackles, and you've got to prepare for Christian McCaffrey. It gives you just a different look. Christian McCaffrey in the passing game is so special, and Mason truly, that's not his forte right now. So they're losing a layer of their offense that is really, I think, really punished them. They've really struggled with that layer of their offense being out.
So it's Nick Sorensen, and Nick Bosa took a pretty obvious shot at Sorensen when he was asked about what happened in the second half against the Cardinals. He said, quote, "They were giving us a different look on the zone read. In all of our losses, the preparation we've had has been great, but teams are playing us different and doing things differently. We need to adjust a little better. They're just showing different looks than what we were looking at on tape. We've got to adjust." That's a pretty obvious shot at his defensive coordinator, and I can't help but maybe connect some dots here with Robert Saleh having been fired now. Could you see a possible return to San Francisco this season?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you've got Sorensen out there being the D coordinator. They also went out and got Brandon Staley, former Chargers head coach, to be a consultant. Adjustments. Like, people always look at adjustments like you strip down what you're doing and you completely change it, and that's not how adjustments work, right? Adjustments are just like, for me, like an offensive adjustment may be going, hey, man, we're getting a lot of this certain coverage, right? Or we're getting a lot of this certain front. So let's stay within the context of what we do, but let's run this play. Like, if we're getting a lot of strong formation, like strong over type of fronts, hey, man, we want to run the weak side a little bit more. We want to really press to the weak side, or we get this certain coverage, we're saying, hey, man, we're getting a lot of, cover four, so let's play a lot of cover four, the cover four beaters, or we're saying, hey, man, we're getting a lot of man-to-man coverage, so we're going to start running a bunch of mesh concepts, a bunch of bunch formations where we're picking guys, we're getting guys up, out, in. Like, we're really taking advantage of that stuff. So, like, those are adjustments that are made on the sideline. It's not like, hey, let's scrap out what we're doing, like, guys, let's put in a new game plan. That's not what happens. But, like, if they're running the zone read a different way and say, hey, man, we were using, this surf technique, for instance, on the edge of the line of scrimmage. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pinch the defensive end. He's going hard for the dive, and we're going to scrape the outside linebacker, and you got now the quarterback, right? Or however you want to do those things. So those are the fine-tuned adjustments that you have to make on the sideline based upon what a team is doing to you. And obviously Nick Bosa is saying, hey, we're not getting that stuff done as a defense, and we need to be better.
Let's jump around. We got a lot of other teams making news. If you're a Cowboys fan these days, are you breathing a little bit easier? Maybe disaster's been averted, and there's still a lot of reason to believe in this team in this season.
I think, one, that final drive that they put together, Mike McCarthy takes a lot of crap. And, like, I thought they put together a game plan or a drive in the final minutes of that game that ate up 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it was, 15 plays. Here's a team that can't run the ball, and Rico Dowdle gets 8 carries of those 15-play drive, right? 8 carries in that. 7 of the passing attempts were all quick, 3-step, get the ball out of my hand, quickness drives, dump it off, dump it underneath, let guys run after the catch. That whole drive was a testament to quick execution and understanding. We know that we're going to have to make play after play after play. There's not going to be a big play over the top that's going to get us a victory. We've got to understand who's rushing on the outside edges, right? We've got to understand how we're going to deal with TJ Watt. We got to understand those things. And so we're going to act accordingly. I thought that was really good coaching that probably went unnoticed. Then Dak Prescott, what the ultimate effect of that, Mike, is you beat somebody up physically, you wear them out, you keep them on the football field, play after play after play after play after play, and then the touchdown to Tolbert on fourth down, where you're running a mesh concept where you got CeeDee Lamb on the left side. He's running across the formation. Then Tolbert comes across the opposite way. That play takes 3 or 4 seconds, and Dak Prescott just buys time. But they're so worn out as a defense. Guess what? On fourth down and 1, they didn't have anything left in the tank to really rush the passer. And so you get that touchdown. Then the other thing about the Cowboys that's interesting to me is you lost your 2 best players. You lost DeMarcus Lawrence to a foot injury, right? He's got the Liz Frank. And then you lost Micah Parsons to a high ankle sprain. He was out. And yet you stopped the running game of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is something the Cowboys were not able to do for weeks, right? They got run through like shit through a goose. And all of a sudden, they've made the adjustment. Mike Zimmer has made the adjustments. They're playing better gap sound defense, and they did it without their 2 superstars. So, like, that's got to be something you would look at as a Cowboys fan and say, hey, man, that gives me a little bit of hope that maybe we fix this thing on the road in a rainstorm in Pittsburgh and come away with a victory over the Steelers and what many think are the best defense in football. I think you've got to take a little bit of pride in that if you're a Cowboys fan or a Cowboys player.
So heaping praise on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure everybody out there watching who's not a Chiefs fan is like, yeah, hey, let's talk more about the Chiefs. Yay. But do we have to give this group their respect in that they're winning a different way, right? I think maybe we've fallen into the trap that, okay, the Chiefs are 5-0, but we expect them to look a certain way. And so maybe we poke holes in what this 5-0 start looks like instead of just acknowledging, hey, man, this is a team that maybe he's kind of learned to win a different way, but they still know how to win. And there's a lot of value in knowing how to win. And they just continue to show that every week.
Yeah, I put a tape together for my TV show here in New York, Breakfast Ball, and there's a couple things. One, I think they're one of the best coached teams offensively by Andy Reid, defensively by Steve Spagnuolo. They're incredible. They're just an absolutely well-coached, well-oiled machine where everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And then you got to give a ton of credit to Brett Veach, their GM. Because every other team that has injuries, we make excuses for those teams. Like, hey, they don't have this player, they don't have that player. How are they supposed to be any good? They've lost some of their weapons. They played last night with street free agents. Mm-hmm. Kareem Hunt, they picked him up off the streets in September, had 102 yards rushing. They picked up street free agent P. Ryan, who was productive last night. Samaje Perine at the running back position. Oh, by the way, street free agent Juju Smith-Schuster was just floating around in August. They picked him up at the end of August. He had over 100 yards receiving. Like putting guys, not worrying about what guys can't do, but worrying about what they can do and then put them in positions to do exactly that. It was amazing. And then Mahomes was phenomenal. 300 plus yards passing and didn't throw a touchdown and was still incredible. And here's the other thing. He's floating around back there. You get him tied up. It's third down. He makes people miss and boom, he's just, converting first downs. By the way, Travis Kelce looked great as well. Yep. And they're using 2 and 3 and 4 tight end formations. It's like, it's just what they do. But the thing that I pointed out on the show today was just about the time that you get so mesmerized by how great Mahomes is, you fail to notice that they're just beating the shit out of people. Like physically, they're like Chris Jones, I'm sorry, Bolton, I'm sorry. Those dudes are destroying people on a scrimmage. And then when you look at Tooney, you look at their center, you look at their right guard, Trey Smith, Humphrey at the center, and they physically wear people out. And I think we get so mesmerized by what Mahomes does is we tend to not look at them. We look at them as this kind of finesse, spread, and they're not. They're condensed. They're getting 2 tight ends. and they physically wear your ass out, and you don't even notice it because Mahomes is so damn good. I've got this strange juxtaposition where I hate them with the white hot intensity of 1,000 suns because they're the Kansas City Chiefs, and it makes me sick. And I also have such respect and love watching them play because they do it the right way. They execute, and they're just better than everybody else. They're the Globo Gym of professional football. We're better than you, and we know it. And that's exactly who they are.
Well, speaking of your allegiances, one thing we've learned about the Broncos under Sean Payton is, hey, listen, you may beat us 16 straight times, but eventually we draw the line in the sand, Chief fans, and you will not beat us a 17 straight time. Mm-hmm. And we saw that again this past weekend. Hey, Raiders, you may beat us 8 straight times. Nobody, and I mean nobody, beats us 9 straight times. The streak is over. The streak's over.
Except for the Chiefs. They beat us 9 straight, but nobody else does that.
Nobody else.
One person.
And you better not try to think you're going to beat them 17 straight times.
Yeah, I think the one thing, and I know that nationally we don't talk about the Broncos, and I get why, I get it. But this defense is freaking legit. And I'm telling you what, if the offense can find its way, if they can get a tight end that eats some space in the middle of the football field, if they can find their way, they can find the kind of go-to guys, and Bo Nix continues to incrementally get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. With that defense playing the way that defense is playing, all of a sudden you got a team that's going to be, that's going to be competing for a playoff spot.
Yep.
Come the end of this football season. So it's really kind of been fun to watch, and it's really been fun to watch that defense. Vance Joseph got them playing great, great football. And for all those people that said, hey, they're the 32nd ranked or 31st ranked, talented team, that they're one of the least talented teams in football. We rank them at 30, 31. I saw publications that had the Carolina Panthers ranked ahead of the Broncos this offseason. And I said, hey, watch out, because they're more talented than you think, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And that's proving to be the case. Riley Moss, along with Pat Surtain, they've got some guys that have come in. Sternad has played really well. They've got some good defensive players. Cooper is a really good player. Benito has played really well. It's pretty fun to watch right now in Denver.
They're a playoff team right now. If the season were to end, they'd be a playoff team right now. A lot of football left to be played. Couple of quick thoughts. Baltimore, only 3-2, but considering how they played the first couple of weeks,
wow,
how they're playing right now, I mean, they're only 3-2. I know their team's 5-0, 4-1. Am I out of bounds saying that I still think the Ravens might be the best team in football?
I don't think you're out of bounds. And last week they found a way to win. Cincinnati's always given a bit of trouble. Like the quick, fast, super lift the top of coverage guys have given them a little bit of a problem, and Cincinnati has done that. Jamar Chase has put up big numbers against the Baltimore Ravens. But here's what I found interesting. All right, so the Baltimore Ravens won a game where they were down by 10 points, okay, against Cincinnati. They were down throughout the entirety of that game by 10 points plus. Mm-hmm. And I always said this about the Ravens. They're built to play with the lead, the way they run the ball and everything. When you get down by 10 plus points, they really struggle. Guess what? It's the first time that they have come back from a 10-point deficit at any point. I'm not talking about a fourth quarter 10-point deficit. I think at any point during the course of the game, the first time that they have come back from a 10-point deficit since 2021. Like, that's ridiculous, right? And yet they were able to do it against the Bengals. Now, albeit one of the worst defenses in football right now, but they still maintain kind of their identity of run the football, create those single high coverage situations where you're getting outside one-on-one, access to the outside to beat those guys. Lamar did that. He did his thing. They look really, really good. And with King Henry, they understand, like, this is how we're going to win football games. I was very impressed with the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, another great weekend. We got a big one coming up this weekend with some other great matchups. Jets and Bills. We'll get into that one coming up this weekend as well. So look forward to it. We'll reconvene here in a couple days.
Yeah. All right, man. For everybody watching us, for everybody who subscribes, we just thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. From Mike, I am Mark. Thank you so much for being a part of the Stinkin Truth podcast. We'll be with you later in the week. By the way, I was 3-0 in my picks. We'll get to that. But, I just felt like 2-1. So, like normal, you're bringing up the rear. But good for you, little shaver.
Hey, giving you a false sense of security, just laying in the weeds.
Just hanging around and
hanging around, laying in the weeds, and then I'll get you.
All right. For everybody involved in Stinkin Truth, man, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back with you later on in the week.